You gave up a TV job to start a podcast in your basement. If that doesn't scream midlife crisis, I don't know what does.
It was Championship Sunday here in Indianapolis. What's the mindset then coming in as a defending champion?
I want to win. No, I want to win.
The young lady over my shoulder, Caitlin Clark.
Not the best looking guy. And I don't think anyone's going to sit here and say, Matt Randazzo was really good looking.
What has this last month, 2 months, 3 months been like for you? It's an important fan base for the Fighting Illini, is it not?
It is.
He turned 69 years young last week. He looked good, Coach.
Oh, try it. Thank you.
Welcome to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It is Tuesday, February 18th. A lot to get to on today's show. A freezing day in the Quad Cities, so hopefully everyone is staying nice and warm inside. I promise spring will be here in like 2 weeks, 3 weeks, but until then, it's cold. So hopefully you're someplace nice and warm and you can, grab your phone. We're on Twitter right now, or X, I should say. I apologize to X, or grab your YouTube device or whatever you want to do and check out Off the Air. We got a great show to get to today. Coming up on today's show, in just a little bit, in a matter of moments, we'll be joined by the voice of the Iowa women's basketball program, Rob Brooks. Rob just back from Columbus, Iowa, with a great effort yesterday on the road at Ohio State. They forced overtime late, came up short, losing that game. So their win streak has been snapped, but it was a good effort for the Iowa Hawkeyes out in Columbus. So we will check in on Rob Brooks and find out his thoughts on that game, and also a big weekend coming up for the Iowa basketball program. Another big Sunday at Carver Hawkeye Arena when Iowa welcomes nationally ranked UCLA to town. Sunday afternoon, it should be electric at Carver. So Rob Brooks coming up in just a matter of moments. Of course, on yesterday's show, we talked with Jess Settles about Iowa and Illinois and men's basketball and the scope of the Big Ten basketball scene right now. We talked about that blunder in Champaign where the jersey banner went up upside down. We'll be joined by Jim Mattson. Couldn't catch up with Jim yesterday because of Jess. So Jim Mattson, our Illini expert, is in just a matter of moments. Or I should say later on into the show, we'll talk about what happened Saturday in Champaign. Also look ahead to a big game tonight for the Fighting Illini. They head north to take on Wisconsin. They've beaten Wisconsin the last 9 straight times. So we'll have Jim Mattson talking Illini athletics. Also the Illini women's basketball program as well. Shauna Green, your Big Ten Coach of the Year, in my opinion. We'll talk to Jim Mattson about everything Illini coming up a little bit later on in the show. And then in the second hour of the show, I'm really excited. We're going to have one of my favorite people in this entire world in studio with me. If anyone knows about Rockridge athletics, they know Glen Cook. If anyone knows anything about Quad City athletics, they probably know Glen Cook. former baseball coach at Rockridge, loves the Olympic Conference and the athletics out in my neck of the woods. Also a big Cub fan and someone who called into K-Jock way back in the day. That's how I met Glenn way back in the day when he would call into the Wild Man Dan Birch. But Glenn is the PA guy at Rockridge, has been forever. This Friday will be his last PA job with Rockridge Athletics. So we're going to talk everything with Glen Cook, whether it comes to Rockridge or the old Olympic Conference or the Cubs or everything in between. Glen Cook coming up in the second hour of today's show. So we're excited to have Glen join us in a little bit. Of course, yesterday was a fun way to start the week on a Monday. As always, Pat Angerer was on. Pat read some poems that I think people enjoyed a lot. So go check out those poems from Pat yesterday. I loved how the big fella opened up to us and showed his sensitive side yesterday with some poems. Also talked with him about a lot of big things in the world of sports and, of course, just society today. So Pat Angerer, always a good listen. Go check that out. We mentioned Jess Settles on the show yesterday. We were also joined by Noah Laporte from Princeton. Noah, now the all-time leading scorer in Princeton basketball history. He's also signed to go play football at Northwestern next season. So really enjoyed my conversation with Noah Laporte. If you missed that, check that out on yesterday's show as well. If you're watching us live on YouTube or on X, we appreciate that. Make sure you subscribe if you're on YouTube. Tell a friend or 2 or 10 as we continue to build this daily Quad City sports show right here in the QC. Also, we are up on all the podcast platforms as well. So if you don't want to look at me the entire time, which I don't blame you, and you missed the show in the morning, you can check it out on all of the podcasting platforms, including Apple Podcasts. So if there's a podcast platform out there that you can't find us at, please let me know. We'll make sure we get on that as well. But I think I checked all the boxes when it came to when it comes to how you can watch the show each and every day. So we appreciate that as well. Coming up in the next few days, we'll be announcing a new sponsor to the show. If you're interested in sponsoring Off the Air with Matt Randazzo, please contact me privately. Excited to continue to expand this as we go down the road, as we get ready for the spring sports season as well. So a lot to get to, but we start with college basketball. It was a weird, different Monday for college hoops with the Iowa women playing a President's Day special on the road at Columbus. And that is where we start with the Iowa women. Fresh back from Columbus, we're joined by our good friend, the voice of the Iowa women, Rob Brooks. First and foremost, Rob, thank you for doing this once again. I know things have been busy for you, especially busier than normal lately. I guess we'll just start with Columbus and yesterday, because an 11 a.m. weird, different Monday afternoon tip, but the Iowa women showed up and they played fantastic basketball, nearly getting that upset victory once again.
They were going very confident going in, and I think they had put together a really good game plan. And the first half got off to a really slow start offensively, but the defense was really good. Just they got a little stagnant and never had the lead. And then got into halftime and really got that transition game going in the third quarter. I thought that really set the tone of the game for the Hawkeyes to get back into it. Starting to get some fast break opportunities, got Hannah Stalky rolling, got some easy looks, and beat the Ohio State pressure. That's the whole thing when you talk about Ohio State, because they'll throw that full court pressure at you off makes, misses, free throws. It doesn't matter. And you've got to be able to handle it. And if you don't, obviously you're going to have 10-0 runs, 15-2 runs, those types of things. And I think Iowa did a really good job of maybe turning it over once or twice, but not letting that get 5 or 6 times in a row, which Ohio State can do, wants to do, and then broke it well enough in the third quarter that Ohio State really had to pull it back. And then a memorable final 5 minutes. There's no doubt about it. I think that there's been a few of those games over the years where you're on the road, top 10 team. Okay, we got beat. We'll go home. Got the full week to get ready for UCLA. But Lucy Olson and this team said, no, not a chance. We're going to try to finish this off. And just an incredible run at the end of the fourth quarter to get that into overtime. Then you feel like all the momentum's on Iowa's side. if you're the home team in that situation, you just said, what the heck just happened? We had that game won with 5 minutes to go, and now let them back into it. It's tied. We're going to overtime. Then Iowa scores the first basket of the extra 5 minutes. And then give Ohio State credit. Iowa was depleted, had foul difficulty, and down 2 starters, playing 2 freshmen, and that was exposed a little bit. And a great effort, but didn't make a field goal. The Hawks in the last 4 minutes and 16 seconds of OT. Ohio State scored the last 7 points of the game, which made the score a little more lopsided than that game really was.
Yeah, Rob, talk to me about that last 95 seconds. As a play-by-play guy, or guy who's sitting right there, good seat in the house, when is this like a nice little run? And when is this like, oh, wow, like this is happening? That's a special 95 seconds that might be forgotten about in the future because the result was eventually a loss. But that 95 seconds was a lot of fun, and it shows the grit of this team. When did you realize that this wasn't just getting closer? This was going to be a run that would force overtime or even win a basketball game?
Well, I think what you look for are incredible shots that start going in, and then that in the back of your mind, you start to say, okay. Lucy Olson's deep 3 from the top of the key, and then kind of an off-balance 3 from the right wing. And those two, from the vantage point I had, it didn't even look like they were going to go in. They were so smooth, just ripped the net, no iron, and that's how clean those shots were. And then I think that's when you think, okay, now, yeah, you got a shot, and then Ohio State got to let you in it with not great free throw shooting. They got there a lot, but missed enough to give Iowa a chance. And you're right, though. You always think, okay, this is a nice little run. It's going to be a 3-point game, 6-point game. And then within an 8-second span, they score 6 points. And then Lucy gets fouled on that mid-range jumper on the left side with basically no time left, and had been struggling a little bit from the free throw line even during that game. And then the first one, it felt like it bounced on the rim 6 or 7 times. I know it was only a couple, but went through and then swished the second one. And then you still got some time, and Ohio State didn't handle that very well and got a half-court shot up. It was late, but it did hit the backboard and the front of the rim. So they had a little bit extra time to get into the front court, but thankfully for the Hawks, got it to overtime, but just couldn't close the deal. And that's 2 overtime losses in a row for Iowa at Columbus. And it was funny because last year it was kind of a reversed role. Iowa had control of that game. They got a 14-point lead in the fourth quarter, and then Ohio State roars back, gets it into overtime. They have all the momentum, and then took care of business. And now they've won 2 straight games in OT against Minnesota and Iowa. And they're one of the upper echelon teams right now in the Big Ten.
You know, Rob, when we did this for the first time, when you were nice enough to come on the first time, you were somewhere in the Northwest, Seattle, Oregon, in that area. Yep. But it was right after the Oregon game. And boy, what a difference these last couple weeks have made, because while that's a close loss at Columbus, it feels a lot different than the close losses earlier in the year where you let one get away against teams that you probably should have beaten. That's a really good basketball team on the road, great gritty effort to come back. But we also specifically talked about Lucy Olson. She was coming off of that Oregon game, I believe, had 4 points and just didn't seem like herself, kind of that lull of the season for her. She's been awesome the last couple weeks. Talk about what you've seen from her, just maybe not even basketball wise, but confidence wise. She just looks like an All-American, Rob. She looks like a first team All-American these last couple weeks.
Yeah, she really has. Look at the last 7 games, 28, 14, 32, 27. And then yesterday poured in 27 again on 3 of 9 from 3-point range. And I agree with you. I think it's a comfort level. Obviously, making shots. Her shooting percentage has gone way up, but just seems to be much more comfortable in this offense and in the role that she has. Came from a completely different system. And you look at the Big Ten versus the Big East, and you knew that this was a step up, probably the best conference in the country. Players are longer, they're faster. You're probably number one, along with Hannah Stalkey on the scouting report, so you're going to attract the best defensive player on the perimeter that the opposition has. So you're a marked player out there, and to be able to handle that, double teams, get knocked off of screens, and then just seeing the ball go through. I mean, it sounds so simple, but boy, it's true. It just spurs everything on. You go back to that Washington game before we talked for the first time, not knowing what was going to happen going into that game, and Iowa shoots 71% as a team from the floor. You know, the game's pretty easy when you can do that, and obviously that's not going to happen all that often. But if you can be around 50 or 52 and be a good three-point shooting team, and that's the way this team is built, evidence of the game at Nebraska, good things are going to happen. And that this team always has played good defense. They've rebounded, but it spurs everything on. Everybody just feels so much better. It's like in golf. If you knock down an 8 or 9 foot putt, don't you, even if it's for par or bogey, don't you feel good going to the next tee just to see something go in? And I think that's a lot of it. And she's kept it rolling. A good player, obviously, third leading scorer in the country. Last year, she's capable. And now I think Lucy's just kind of being Lucy. And credit the coaching staff, too, because they have kept her as confident as possible. We believe in you. And you go back to that USC game where Jan Jensen talked to her at halftime. I have so much belief in you. You're one of the best players out there. And then she went and showed it against the Trojans in obviously a great atmosphere. And now the kid's not 27 and 8. It's 20 plus pretty much every night. And you don't feel like she's hunting shots to do it. She's doing what she needs to do for this team to be successful.
That is exactly correct. Rob Brooks joining us right now. One more from Columbus, and I want to talk to you about UCLA on Sunday. But you look at the box score, and all of a sudden you're looking at like who pops out. And when you got Sydney getting 15 rebounds, and it's some days she's knocking down big threes, some days she's getting 15 rebounds, some days she's scoring 15, 20 points. You need that type of person. Kind of talk about what you've seen from her, because she is a jack of all trades, where it seems like when Iowa needs something any given night, she's that person that can do that. Sydney was impressive yesterday.
Very much so. Tied a career high with 15 rebounds. I think that's her 6th double-double of the season, and 2 of the last 3 games she's had a double-double. And I think that's kind of twofold, too. You remember she had that knee procedure before the season and didn't even play in Iowa's first game. So took time to kind of get back and get comfortable. And I just think this team now is much more comfortable with one another on the floor than they probably were earlier. And you remember a lot of mixing and matching of combinations, trying to find the right players at the right time. And now this team has really kind of settled into a rotation. I think you've seen that in the last several weeks, and the starters are getting a lot of minutes. And I think that's the other side of this too, is you've got Sydney and obviously Lucy Olson, other seniors. There's 3 regular season games left. And then you've got the Big Ten tournament. You never know how long that lasts. It's lasted a long time, the last 3 years. And then 90% chance you're going to play in the NCAA tournament. So if you're a senior, you can see the end now. It's not mid-January, late January, where everybody's tired. You've been playing for months, just kind of in the middle of a conference season. Now you can see the end, and that clock's ticking. And I think for seniors, you get the realization is that your career is coming down the stretch. I mean, senior day is just a couple of weeks away, a little bit more. And I think that has a lot to do with it, too. Not that they don't give great effort each and every play, because they do, but it's got to be a little extra for those seniors here coming down the stretch of February.
Rob, there is no Caitlin Clark coming to town on Sunday. But with that being said, Carver is going to be electric. It has been the last 32 times these ladies have taken the court. I think it is the 32-game sellout streak for the ladies. It's a Sunday. It's a nationally ranked top 5 team. They did it before. There's a blueprint there. What's your thoughts going into Sunday? And I think expectations for this game against UCLA are higher than they were against USC. I mean, I knew that was going to be special, but that was Caitlin, and hey, if they could win the game, it'd be great. The blueprint is there to beat a top 5 team at Carver Hawkeye Arena on a Sunday. It's a big game again on Sunday, and it should be an electric atmosphere, shouldn't it?
It will be. Sunday afternoon, no question about it. Something about those powder blue uniforms, a rarity that they come to Carver Hawkeye Arena. But USC and UCLA, 1 and 2 in the conference. USC actually defeated UCLA last weekend. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of the same focus, I think, that when the Trojans came to town is the atmosphere is going to be there. People are going to be ready. UCLA has played in tough atmospheres, but not Carver Hawkeye. I think you can pretty much say that about every team in the country, outside of maybe Notre Dame and South Carolina, that have great home court advantages. But there's something about CHA with women's basketball right now, so they'll have to handle that. And you would think that UCLA would have to get off to a better start, certainly than USC has. And I think the other factor is that Iowa's got a little time here this week. I know the coaches have already been, the assistant coaches have been working on the scout and getting the game plan ready, watching pretty much every UCLA game throughout the year. And they'll implement that all week and be able to get a little bit of rest and get ready for UCLA. But it is. I mean, these are the games that you kind of look at the beginning of the season, and you see, well, that one's going to be pretty special. So is this one. And it'll be rocking and rolling on Sunday, no doubt about it. And we'll see what happens. The next 3, Iowa and I think Indiana, are the only 2 teams that played 2 ranked opponents coming down the stretch. So they've got a tough schedule. You have to go to Michigan next Wednesday and then finish it off against Wisconsin. Should take care of business there. At least guarantee yourself 9-9 in Big Ten play. But another signature victory would be pretty nice heading into March.
Rob, I know it's been a busy time for you. Before I let you go, our mutual friend John Marks, which I always have to talk about, which disappoints me because I always name drop him, but he was talking about your travel schedule when we were talking. You know, he loves any attention he gets, he's okay with. But it's been wild and crazy for you, kind of filling in for Doff a little bit, and then obviously what you have going on with the women. And I was going to ask you last week, but things were crazy. The traveling's a lot, but then some of the weirdness in the traveling. What was getting to Minnesota like? And how crazy was it? You've done this. I won't call you old. I'm not going to age you, but this isn't your first rodeo. You've done a lot of this.
No.
That was a little funky getting up to Minnesota with the weather and everything, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was. You go back to that Minnesota game. It'll be a week ago this Thursday. And Thursday night game, Hawks were going to leave on Wednesday. We had some ice, had some weather here in eastern Iowa. And, just even though it's a private plane, it felt like a commercial situation where, okay, we're going to go in an hour. No, can't quite go yet. First attempt to take off didn't work, so you have to come back. There's a lot of paperwork involved. We had that happen at the Orange Bowl several years ago where they had to abort a takeoff, and at that time it was about 2 hours worth of paperwork before you could give it another go. And so I had to sit around the FBO at Cedar Rapids Airport, and the pilots and the crew there kept saying, well, I think we're going to be able to get out. We're going to de-ice, try it. Well, that never happened. So team actually just said, okay, we'll just go stay overnight at the Kirkwood Hotel up the street, try it again in the morning, and got out finally late afternoon. So you're already out of routine. Yeah. You're supposed to be up there, get a good night's sleep, have your shoot around. Well, there was no shoot around that day, at Williams Arena. Had to go to Minnesota's practice facility after the Hawkeyes eventually arrived early afternoon. And it was a really bumpy ride in, and it was a tough landing, a lot of turbulence, and as you mentioned, experience. So we've all been through it, but some of these players haven't quite experienced that type of travel, and several of them didn't feel all that great. And it was a kind of slow start to the shoot around. Got through it, but Coach Jensen, threw out Norm Stewart, who was the Missouri head coach on the men's side for many, many years, and he kind of defied the Big 12 conference, and he always flew day of the game. Just wanted to get in and get out. Obviously, if he really knew there was weather coming, he would go the day before, but that was his MO. That was his game plan to do each and every game, and obviously a pretty successful Hall of Fame coach. And Jan Jensen told the team that, Norm Stewart, Hall of Fame coach, they flew day of game every single trip in conference. And she was worried about how the team would react. Obviously, reacted great, got back, no problem. Memorable in a lot of different ways, but to get that victory and then turn around and go to Nebraska, I think we had talked the week before how that was going to be a huge week for the Hawkeyes at Minnesota, at Nebraska. Won them both, and then got back, took care of Rutgers, and then snapped that 6-game winning streak yesterday.
It's been a good run for the Iowa Hawkeyes. It's been a good run for Rob Brooks as well. You're living the good life, my friend. Enjoy it. Keep the good times rolling. Enjoy things on Sunday, and I always appreciate you taking time to do this with me. We appreciate it.
No problem, Matt. Thanks. Appreciate it.
All right. He is Rob Brooks, the voice of the Iowa women's basketball team. Of course, they get some time off now. They will turn their attention to nationally ranked, top 5 ranked UCLA coming up this weekend at Carver Hawkeye Arena on Sunday afternoon. So we go from Iowa City and we now turn our attention to Champaign. The Illinois men's basketball team have a big game tonight against a team they've dominated lately. They've had Wisconsin's way. They go to Mattson tonight for a big game. Coming up after the break, we'll be joined by our good friend Jim Mattson. We'll talk about the Illini and the Badgers. We'll also look back at what was a pretty frustrating night, both on and off the floor in Champaign on Saturday evening when it comes to the banner blunder and, of course, a loss to Sparty. So after the break, Jim Mattson. And coming up later in the show, my good friend Glen Cook, Mr. Rockridge himself. He's getting ready to do PA for the Rockets for the last time on Friday after a legendary career as a coach there, as a PA guy there. Everybody knows and loves Glen Cook. He's coming up in hour number 2. But after the break, we'll be back with the one and only Jim Mattson. You're watching Off the Air on a Tuesday.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. A lot of college basketball to talk about these days, and everyone was talking about Champaign on Saturday. They were talking about it on Sunday. They were talking about it on Monday. We talked about it on the show, and we're probably going to continue to talk about it with our next guest because Jim Mattson joins us. We'll talk a lot of basketball. There's a big game in Mattson tonight, big picture stuff with the Fighting Illini. I'm going to talk about our girl Shauna Green a little bit as well because she keeps winning. But Jim, I got to start with that. And I know you're an Illini guy. And it was funny because I said to Jess yesterday on the show, the 12-year-old Iowa fan inside of me was laughing really hard. But the big picture of stuff is, it's just a wild thing that you never expect to happen. What goes through your mind when you see the unveiling of an upside down banner at the State Farm Center?
Well, it's funny because I was actually in the second row of photographers. So they had actually put the VIP seats right next to me. So I was literally sitting right next to Terrence Shannon. So Terrence Shannon is directly, and I could just, in the first half, you could just feel how excited he was in this big moment and how proud he was. And it was building up to be this beautiful moment. And when the banner was unveiled upside down, I mean, I'm kind of shooting the camera and watching it. And I actually heard the gasp because I was kind of on a wide shot with Shannon and the banner. And I heard the gasp, and I was like, what's that? And then I zoomed in, I'm like, oh my God, it's upside down. And my initial reaction really was like, it's the practical joke. Like, maybe Shannon's a joker and Brad Underwood's going to come out and say, hey, we got you. Or I thought it was just too preposterous that it was wrong. That part of me was like, this has got to be some kind of gag or joke. And then when they started raising it, I was like, I didn't understand raising it. I mean, I don't know all the semantics of how could they have just cut it or could they have unlooped it but it was like, for those of you who can't see that it's upside down, we're now going to raise it so you can all see that it's upside down and hang it there the whole second half. It was just preposterous. And, Shannon sat next to me in the second half and, people were walking up to him saying, well, it stands out more. And, but it was embarrassing. And, afterwards, when Whitman talked to the media, you've been part of projects, obviously people at John Deere have been part of projects, you work so long on a project and then something kind of catastrophic happens and it's just devastatingly embarrassing. I felt bad for the Illini athletic department because, like Whitman said, they ruined a great moment for Shannon. And I don't know, 2 days later, I'm still thinking about it and I'm like, some part of you is like, well, Shannon got more coverage because now everybody knows his jersey's retired. They also know it's upside down.
Yeah.
It's that old is bad publicity. Any publicity is good publicity, but boy, it was an embarrassing moment. And, unfortunately we'll remember that ceremony forever.
Yeah. A couple things came to my mind, and obviously you're a TV legend, so you know about this, but if you have a live shot and you go to said live shot and they don't have the microphone, you don't continue with the live shot for the next 15 minutes.
Right.
And that's what I felt like. It was like, you see the problem. Everybody knows the problem. And with live TV, sometimes you're just honest. Sometimes if they go to the wrong highlight, you just have to go, well, actually, we took the Metamora highlights or the Moline highlights instead of Rock Island and kind of fix it on the fly. I was just surprised, like you just said, they didn't fix it on the fly. And I talked to a good friend of mine and somebody Andrew Lehman at the John Deere Classic yesterday. And again, somebody who plans big events and big ceremonies. And he's like, I just felt bad because it's like if you got the name spelled wrong on the check, or if you forgot the jersey or not the jersey, but the trophy or something. I mean, these guys plan these big events and it stinks to have it happen like that. But you mentioned Josh Whitman. Boy, I thought per usual with that guy. And I think it was yesterday that it was like the 12th year anniversary since he was hired, or I'm not sure about the number, but it was he usually hits home runs when he steps to a microphone and addresses something. And I thought he did a good job on Saturday night too, Jim.
Yeah. I mean, he did not have to do that. But he quickly said, "Hey, we want to apologize to Terrence and his family. We want to apologize to the Illini." It was a big game. I mean, obviously everybody in the place had a Shannon shirt on that was given away. It was, it's so funny because I mean, obviously last year was such a tumultuous year for Shannon, and for this to be the final moment for him in Champaign, or the crowning moment, and for it to be upside down was just crazy. But no, I thought Whitman handled it well. For him to come out in front and to formally apologize. I mean, people, I don't know. We're in such a society, somebody's going to get fired or whatever. Things happen, problems happen. I'm just amazed that, there's video of them doing the rehearsal at like 3:00. And the rehearsal, they dropped the jersey, but they didn't unfurl it. And yeah, so there is video of a guy at the microphone and they drop the jersey and the jersey comes down, but they never unfurled it.
Yeah.
So they wanted to make sure it could drop, but they never unfurled it. And it was such an unfortunate moment for what should have been such a crowning moment. I mean, they did Kofi so well on Tuesday, and then Terrence was just. And, they took pictures after the game with the banner in its correct position, but by then the arena's empty and the electricity was gone. And I mean, from that moment on, obviously the whole second half, the electricity was gone in the arena. The way the Illini played, it was a bizarre night.
Jim, let's talk about the basketball end of things, because we talked last week and I agreed with you. I felt like this was going to be a signature game, love lost between the two schools. They had remembered the game up in East Lansing, and boy, first half it seemed like you and I were right when that's not normal.
Yeah.
We aren't always right, and a 16-point lead. But credit Sparty for that end of the first half to get back to within 4 at recess. When you're down 16, that's a lot of momentum going into halftime.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think there was a little bit of fool's gold early. I mean, I think Illinois hit 3 of their first 4 3-pointers, and they hit like 4 out of 29 after that. But they made shots early, which looks good. They got a couple of fast breaks early, which, a couple of deflections went their way. They threw it ahead for dunks. So, maybe that lead was a little misleading because maybe in hindsight they weren't playing that great. Now, KJ was getting downhill, and I don't know why he stopped, because I didn't think Michigan State could guard him. I thought he was going to score 30. But you're right. At the end of the half, when Michigan State chopped away at that lead, it was just a weird night, because at halftime you were so excited about Shannon that you kind of looked at the score and you're like, yeah, we're only up 4. Illinois is only up 4. You felt like they were up more. And even at the end of the game, I felt like Illinois was down by 6 and they were down by 14. It was, the game just kind of got away a couple times. Obviously, the last 6 minutes of the first half and the last 8 minutes of the second half were just horrendous for Illinois.
It's funny because I had gotten home and I had watched most of the game, and my kid wanted a frozen pizza or something too late at night. We had basketball all day, and I went out to the garage, and it was a 2-point game, and I came back in, and my garage isn't far. I'm talking about 20 seconds, and it went from like 2 to 6. And I hadn't realized till later in the night that they took 2 points away, and then they got a bucket and it went from 2 to 6 quickly. But Jim, we've talked about this, and I talked with Jess Settles yesterday on the show. If anybody missed that, go check out Jess. Really good job breaking down both Illinois and Iowa and the Big Ten in a whole yesterday. But we talked about their struggles from deep and shooting the basketball. And you mentioned the fool's goal, because I think they made 4 of the first 8 threes. But when you get to a point where you don't score in the last 8:30 of a game and you continue to shoot threes, and you mentioned guys getting downhill, there's NBA guys on this team. There's guys that can get to the basket. There's big dudes on this team to settle, I guess, to shooting 33 threes, only making 7 of them. I can tell the Illinois fans' frustrations, because that's a frustrating thing. If you're sitting at home, I'm no genius. If I'm sitting at home and I'm thinking that way and they can continue to do it, it's like that definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different result. A frustrating aspect when it comes to the outside shooting for Illinois, isn't it?
Oh, it's crazy. I mean, Illinois started the second. I think they got in the bonus with like 12 minutes to go in the game. And I was like, they're going to make a living at the free throw line. They're going to attack. They're going to get Michigan State in foul trouble. They're going to get easy free throws. And they didn't do any of that. And there was one possession where Illinois missed a 3. Got I don't know if it was Merez, but they got a very aggressive offensive rebound, kicked it out, shot another 3, got a really good offensive rebound, kicked it out, shot another 3. And it was like the crowd was like groaning. It was like, they missed all three. And, they were settling. And I know one of Coach Underwood's favorite words is freedom. He always talks about giving players freedom and wanting players to shoot. And, even when you hear recruits come to the game, they almost invariably, the recruits will say, I like Coach Underwood's offense. He gives the players so much freedom. And, is it too much freedom? Is it, we really haven't seen Underwood blow up this year. I mean, at some point, do you say we're not settling for threes? We're not chucking. I keep calling it the chuck and duck offense. It's like, and you're right. It's the insanity thing. It's like their offense is hope. Let's hope we make this one. Let's hope we make this one. Instead of driving downhill, getting to the basket, getting to the free throw line. Right now they're a horrendous 3-point shooting team. They're under 300 in the nation in 3-point shooting. And this team was built for shooting. So obviously they made some mistakes in the transfer portal and what have you, or things that didn't pan out. But if it's not working, you got to change it. You got to say, we're going to become an attacking team, a downhill team. And it's frustrating. It's frustrating to see a team that almost every game you look at the box score, and if they don't shoot the three well, they lose, and there's been way too many of those games.
Jim Mattson joining us right now on Off the Air. There is a frustration that I think Illini fans, I hate these damn phones sometimes because, you pick it up in social media and that's in fact, a funny story, my own son, who's an Iowa fan, a freshman in high school, like I was just on Twitter, Iowa lost before Rutgers, whatever game that was. They all run together these days, Jim. And I looked and like my son tweeted, fire everyone. Iowa basketball or something like that. And he was in my car and I'm like, first off, delete that. Second off, you don't know what. So if a 15-year-old, God bless Charlie, can get on and do those things, anybody can do it. There is this backlash on social media right now about Brad, which we talked about it with Jess yesterday, is laughable because of what he's done with this program and where it's been. How do you tweak it? How do you fix it? I don't agree with the fact that he's not a good X's and O's coach because you don't fake it this long and be a bad X's and O's coach.
Right.
How do you tweak it? How do you fix it? Because obviously what he's done with the program is fantastic. There just has to be some tweaking or adjusting, doesn't it?
I would think so. But again, we're in such every year is a brand new challenge. There's 5 games left. We're waiting all year for this team to hit their potential, for this team to hit their stride, to be great 3-4 games in a row. Well, there's 5 games left. I mean, it's kind of what I've been saying all year is that Will Riley's going to be a great player. KJ's going to be a great player, but unfortunately, they're going to be wearing, the Denver Nuggets jersey when they become a great player. They're going to be in the NBA. Their potential is there's not enough time for them to reach their potential at Illinois in this kind of one and done society that we live in, and I've been saying all year, I feel like this team is going to reach the first week of the NCAA tournament, and we're going to say, boy, that was potentially a great team. If they all came back next year, they would be a great team, but that's not where we live in 2025. And can Brad, it's kind of the $1 million question. Can Brad give players freedom to recruit the great players and then coach the players to not have so much freedom? You know what I mean? It's where do you say, I'm going to give this guy all the freedom in the world because he's a future lottery pick, but I also need to coach him because on days when he's not shooting it well, we still have to win games, and we haven't found that fine line this year with Illinois. It's like, I'm not really questioning Underwood's coaching, but it's a different level of coaching now. And the one thing I questioned last week with you, I continue to question, is last year's team was so old. With Gary Ayer with 100 starts and Domask with 100 starts and Shannon with 100 starts and Hawkins with 100 starts. This team is so young. Ivisic, new to our country. KJ, new to our country. Will Riley, should be a high school senior. They're so young that you probably can't expect them to be as good as an old team. And, you're going to see a relatively old Wisconsin team, a relatively old Purdue team, a relatively old Michigan team in the next 4 or 5 games. And it's kind of Illinois' kids against Big Ten men, and it's not working out real well.
Yeah, and it's funny you point that out because Kentucky in recent years have been super talented. Wow, look at these 5-star freshmen, and they end up being really good at the next level, but they didn't win a lot of NCAA tournament games at Kentucky. So that is the catch-22 on how you put things together. You know what I will say? Brad Underwood usually adjusts or adapts. He's one of those people that has gone with what college basketball has given them with the transfer portal and all that kind of stuff. It'll be interesting to see how he does that moving forward. Moving forward for Illinois, there is basketball to be played. It's not an easy stretch. Now they go to Mattson, and they go to a Badgers team playing really good basketball, just won at Purdue. And they haven't beaten Illinois in 9 games. It's not an ideal situation for Illinois tonight, but it seemed like an ideal situation on Saturday for Illinois, and it didn't work out. So you never know in college basketball. I guess your thoughts of Wisconsin tonight, that winning streak against the Badgers, and what Illinois has to do to get back on the right side of the win column.
Well, again, it's a pretty old Wisconsin team. You know, they hit a home run in the transfer portal with John Tonje, who's averaging about 20 points a game for him. And you know, if Illinois had one of those guys who's a 20-point game every night, it would make a difference. But I really don't know what to expect tonight. You know, Illinois beat them 9 times in a row. Illinois beat them pretty bad back in December in Champaign. Trey White had a huge game there with the Merez Johnson injury. I assume we'll see more Trey White tonight. But Wisconsin seems to have the mojo. They've won 12 out of 14 or whatever in the Big Ten, or 10 out of 12. I mean, they're playing at a really high level in the Big Ten, a level Illinois has not seen with consistency. You know, Wisconsin's a favorite for sure. You know, Illinois has got to find a way to, you know, they've got 5 games left. They have Iowa, but then the other 4 are against Duke, ranked 3rd, Wisconsin 11, Michigan 12, Purdue 13, or whatever it is. But 4 of the top 13 teams in Iowa is who Illinois has left. They got to find a way to win one of those 4 high-quality games, or I could see them slip into like a 10 seed. I mean, one of my buddies thinks they might wind up in Dayton, you know, in the play-in game. They've got to avoid the slippage, and the injuries have been a concern, but still, on paper, they're talented. But I keep going back to on paper, they're so young. And you see that, again, they rarely have a good half. They usually have 10 good minutes, 10 so-so minutes, 10 good minutes, and they just have not found the consistency. And we're 5 games away from the season being over and not finding the consistency.
You mentioned the Merez Johnson injury, dude. Jim, I love that guy. Like, and just the way he injured it and then played. And like, you can go back and watch video after he injured it with a broken wrist, and he's attacking the rim and doing what he does. And heck, the injury itself was amazing because the two-handed block and
unbelievable.
Good thing he got his wrist down, I guess, because I thought he was going to wear a face plant. But those guys, fans got to love. He brings a lot of energy and effort, and we just talked about getting the ball inside and not relying on threes, and now you lose him. Obviously, Trey White's got to step up, and I'm drawing a blank on his name, the Notre Dame transfer, Booth. Does he get a few more minutes? How do they replace what Morez had done, especially of late?
Yeah, I don't know where Booth stands. I mean, you know, this is a kid that played a lot at Notre Dame, was, you know, one of the more ballyhooed transfers, and we've barely seen him. So I don't know where Booth stands. I think Trey White plays more. You know, unfortunately for Illinois, I think Hummer Rickhouse plays more of the 4, and I think he's been better at the 3. I hate to be the guy who just said, it's insanity to hope, but you hope they have a good 3-point shooting night. I'm kind of at the point where I think if you just line up Illinois and Wisconsin wins. But if Illinois has one of those Oregon shooting nights, maybe Illinois can win. But Merez had become a real energy guy. He complimented Ivica so well. He rebounded so well. He got extra possessions. That was something they were lacking. I really thought over the last 6 weeks, the development of Merez in the starting lineup and Will Riley coming off the bench was kind of a missing link for Illinois. And now you lose Merez. It's another blow, and it's been a frustrating year. I do kind of believe a little bit sometimes it's just not your year. And with the KJ, illnesses and injuries, and the Ivica injuries, and now the Merez injury, maybe it just wasn't in Illinois' cards. But we'll see.
What does indefinitely mean? Do you know anything? Have you heard anything? I'm not a doctor. I don't know how long it takes fix a wrist and all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't seem like it's a sprain where it's, I mean, I don't know.
No.
Hopefully they can get that guy back for some important games. He's fun to watch. He's really fun to watch. Speaking of fun to watch, I can't let you go without talking about the women's team down there, because we just had Rob Brooks on the show, the voice of Iowa women's basketball, and Iowa playing great basketball. They had won like 6 or 7 in a row before losing a tough one in overtime yesterday. And here quietly, and not so quietly anymore, all the Illini women do is win. And I love it when Shauna gets on the microphone after a game and talks to the crowd, and the crowd's getting bigger and bigger as it goes. There's an energy and excitement behind Illinois women's basketball. I know it's the same question I ask every week, but she keeps winning games, Jim. That's the Big Ten Coach of the Year. It has to be.
I think it has to be too. With the injuries they've had, like you said, with the winning streak they've had, with the way they're playing, you know, obviously this is, put up or shut up time. They're playing USC and UCLA on the road this weekend, and I guess if you're a critic, you're going to say that, in the last 8 games they played one ranked team. That they haven't played the Big Ten Elite. They played the Big Ten Elite this weekend. We'll see how they do, but yeah, she has endeared Illini Nation with her, coming to the microphone saying these girls deserve more fans, and the crowds are starting to come. They're at like 6,000 now. They're starting to build some momentum. I keep saying next year when the recruits come in, when they're healthy, could really be a breakthrough season. But she has laid a foundation now where people are embracing women's basketball. They're ranked 25th. It feels like they're on verge of something really, really special. And, I still, part of me thinks they're probably a year away. And we'll see what they do this week against, Juju and against UCLA. But I think that there's just no doubt that, we talk about Josh Whitman's 12 years, and, Brett Bielema's been great, and Brad Underwood's been great, but Shauna's probably been his best hire. I mean, Shauna has taken a program that was buried and dead and nobody even cared about, and now there's a ton of momentum with that program, and it's, Coach of the Year. She's one of the, right now, one of the all-time great coaching stories in Illinois. She has really built up a program that had been dormant for 20 years.
I haven't looked at the bracketology of the women's side of things. Are they even in the discussion to maybe have a top 16 seed, which would mean a top 4 seed? Can they get there? Obviously, if they go to California and win 1 or 2 games, maybe.
Yes.
But I'm thinking out loud, so you can help me and educate me, but it would be cool to see them host. Like you said, maybe a year away from that, but that's a realistic possibility come next year, especially.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, right now their net ranking is not high. I'm not sure what it is offhand, but they don't have a ton of high-quality wins. Their win over Maryland on the road is still their best win. They have a chance to change that and obviously really improve their resume with an upset this weekend. But they're going to be in the tournament. They're ranked 25th. I mean, I always get a kick out of rankings because, they come out every Monday, and sometimes we report them, sometimes we don't. But it's a big story when Illinois women's basketball is ranked again. It's a big story that they're considered one of the top 25 teams in the country. It's a big story they're going to the tournament. I agree with you. I just love her attitude. Her attitude is, we're injured, we're banged up, but, nobody gives a crap about that. We got to go out and win games. We got to find a way to win. And I just love that. I mean, it's, Underwood, if he got on the microphone and said, hey, we're not making threes, we got to find another way to win, we'd all embrace that. And that's kind of Shauna. Shauna's like, we've got to find a way to win. Nobody's going to feel sorry. Oh, Illinois is hurt. Let's take it easy on them. That's not the world of sports. And she's a fighter. And I love that she fights for crowds, that she wants more people there. She wants more attention for Illinois basketball. And she's really earning it. And it's been impressive.
Before I let you go, we know about Wisconsin tonight, this weekend, and Duke. And it's not the matchup I think people envisioned back when it was set up. But to get on that grand stage and be playing that team in that building and the things that it does to put Illinois basketball in that national spotlight, it's a great opportunity. Like we always mention, we can sit here after a Spartan disaster on Saturday and talk doom and gloom, but college basketball is really cool. They go to Mattson and win tonight. They figure out a way to beat Duke, and we're completely different. A great opportunity, not just tonight, but this weekend against Duke. Just what does that game mean down in that area, down in Peoria, Champaign, when it comes to the overall scope of college basketball?
Well, you're right. It's a great compliment to Illinois that Fox TV on a Saturday night wants to have Duke, Duke play Illinois. I mean, for years I've said, we're still kind of hanging out in Tom Izzo land. Whenever there's a big Big Ten game, they want Michigan State to play. In the Champions Classic in November, it's always Michigan State. And I'm like, at some point, it's got to be Purdue or Illinois. And Underwood has got Illinois on the Thanksgiving Day game against Arkansas with a huge TV audience, on Saturday night against Duke with a huge TV audience. And that's, again, for all the critics of Underwood, look at where Illinois was at the end of the John Gross era. They weren't playing Duke on a Saturday night on national TV in New York City. So it's a compliment to your program that people think of you as a national program, which is not where they used to be. Now, the thing about Duke is, they go destroy Virginia last night. Duke right now is playing like a 1 seed where whoever they line up with, they're blowing them out. And, it could get ugly Saturday. But, yeah, the attention of being in that game and being featured national TV, Madison Square Garden, is a real compliment to Brad Underwood and the program. And you can't buy that kind of publicity. And, for KJ and Will Riley and the guys who are dreaming of the NBA, Madison Square Garden against Cooper Flagg and Duke, pretty good opportunity.
You were there on Saturday. Before I let you go, I'm an Izzo guy. I think he just does it the right way.
Too.
He's always been very personable to all media. Like, I remember asking him questions as visiting media, and he's been really good. What was that like on Saturday night? Obviously, you didn't want to see it happen at Illinois against the Illini, but to have that guy atop the Big Ten when it comes to all-time wins is not a bad thing, in my opinion, at all.
No, I agree with you. And I always look at an Izzo and I'm like, well, we have another Izzo. Will we have another guy who coaches as long as he does, 30 years, and can consistently win and can consistently do it his way. And, I hope we can, because I grew up in the era of Gene Cady and Bobby Knight and, Judd Heathcote at Michigan State, Lou Henson at Illinois, guys who had been around 20 years. And, I love that. And, I respect the heck out of McCaffrey at Iowa. You survived that long with all the critics and all the text messages and Charlie coming after him, and but it's hard. It's hard to be. I know they're paid remarkably well and this, that, and the other, but there is a lot to it. And I have always admired Izzo's programs and the way he coaches and his players playing hard. And it was neat to be there when he broke the record. You can tell it meant a lot to him. You can tell it meant a lot to break Bobby Knight's record. And I think Izzo, like a lot of us, I'm sure, like you, Matt, like me, Big Ten basketball means a lot to me. So for him to be the all-time winningest coach in the Big Ten, I think is it's a great record, but B, I think it's a pretty fitting record for that guy.
Do me a favor, go watch Jess from yesterday. He talked about not just Big Ten basketball, but Iowa basketball, because it was game 3,000 for Iowa. And I joked with Jess, he probably played in 2,000 of them. But he talked about what Big Ten basketball means. A little more Iowa, but it hit me because that was me growing up, and I think you'd think the same way. It was like it was intertwined with your childhood and those Wednesday nights, those Saturday nights, what you were doing and watching, and the familiar names, and it's super important. Now, I got this new feature where I go to a one shot of you, and I got to figure out, is that Valentine's Day candy off behind you on the counter the other way?
I got some here. I got some here too.
I think the bag's there.
Yes, we got Valentine's candy over here too. We got we got some. My wife's got a February birthday, and then she's got Valentine's Day, and I've got 3 girls, and we have more Valentine's candy in this house now than it might be a record right now. So there's, and the problem is, like, my girls, they all leave now. I've got one girl who's studying abroad in New Zealand. I got a girl at Monmouth College, so they come home and there's candy, and then they all leave. So I'm eating pretty well these days.
I love it. I have a wife whose birthday is the February 19th. And
it's hard.
The 14th, and it's just, boy, you almost try to figure out one nice big thing to do, but then you get in trouble because then you're combining the two. You got to keep them separate. Right. So, all right, Jim. Well, we appreciate this. Best of luck to the Illini tonight and on Saturday, and we'll catch up with you real soon. I appreciate you doing these.
Sounds great, Matt. Take care, buddy.
All right. He is Jim Mattson, legendary sportscaster down in the Peoria area. Always great to talk to him here on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Well, coming up next, we're going to go to the high school level. A good friend of mine is in studio with me, Glen Cook. We call him Mr. Rockridge for a reason. One of the greatest guys you're going to ever meet. a longtime Quad City sports fan, longtime voice of Rockridge when it comes to the PA system over there, a coach at Rockridge, and just an all-around good dude. We're going to talk to him because coming up on Friday, he's going to do the PA for his last event at Rockridge. So Glen Cook on Rockridge, the old Olympic conference, and everything in between. Straight ahead right here on Off the Air on a Tuesday.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities. Thank you guys so much for joining us. It's been a fun show so far. Of course, we had the one and only Rob Brooks join us early in the show to talk about the Iowa women. Nearly pulling an upset in Columbus yesterday. Now they get ready for UCLA at Carver Honkai Arena. The people in Iowa City getting ready for their 33rd straight sellout for women's basketball. Really, really cool what they're doing in Iowa City. So if you missed that, go check that out from Rob Brooks. Also, Jim Mattson just along to talk about the Illini, their tough night in Champaign, both on and off the court, but on Saturday. And then looking ahead to Wisconsin tonight. The Illini have beaten the Badgers 9 straight times to see if they can get back on track and break that or continue that winning streak tonight up in Madison. So if you missed those, go check them out. Thank you so much for watching. If you're watching on X, that's new this week. You can watch us live on X during the day as well. So that is something exciting, and we appreciate you guys for doing that as well. Also, don't forget, you can check us out on all the podcasting platforms after the show. So if you don't want to look at my ugly face, I don't blame you. And I figured if you have to look at my ugly face, I better balance it out with one of the most handsome guys I've ever met. Glen Cook joining us now here in studio. Glen, thank you for doing this. I appreciate this.
Oh, it's an honor. You've been such a part of my life, Matt. When you were at QAD, you always managed to get a shot of me doing the PA out at Rockridge, but yeah, it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, They say in the business, sex sells, and good-looking people sell. So I got to put good-looking people on TV as much as possible, and that was always Glen Cook.
This face will stop the clock.
Well, first and foremost, I appreciate you coming out to a very familiar place for you because, one, you're a Rockridge guy, so you come out to Rockridge all the time, and I'm on the way to Rockridge. But you had told me when I moved out here, this used to be...
This was our farm.
This is your farm.
Our
Tell me about that.
family farm, yeah. For 150 years, this was our farm. It was just a small 80-acre L-shaped farm, and it's really kind of neat that you bought a house on our old farm.
It's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. Now my kids are ripping up the terrain around the place and having a lot of fun. So
I've helped pick corn. I've helped harvest oats. help with my brother's horses when he had them here, and it was left to my brother and I, and so yeah.
I feel like I should make you do some yard work or something before you leave, just for fun. No, it's too cold to do that.
Man.
If anyone out there that doesn't know who Glen Cook is, I call you Mr. Rockridge. What year did you graduate from Rockridge?
58. We were the first class.
58, first
really
class
proud
at Rockridge. Baseball coach at Rockridge.
Yep.
He's been the PA guy there for
51 years.
51 years. They put a
Yep.
microphone in your face for 51 years and let you talk.
Yeah.
And you didn't get canceled or didn't get any trouble. Well, you've gotten in a little bit of trouble.
I've gotten in all kinds of trouble. If you know, and so have you. You know, if you do this, if you have a microphone in front of you for that long, you're going to make a mistake, and I've made tons of them.
But come Friday, it'll be your last game as the PA guy at Rockridge.
Yeah, it's really sad for me, and fact is, the other day I'm sorry to admit this, but I started crying at home. I was thinking about doing the lineups for the last time, and and one of the reasons I was going to quit after last year. I was trying to get to 50, and then I thought, who are you doing this for, you or the kids? You know, and so, but then I love this bunch of boys, the senior class. Yeah. Landon Bull and Caleb Kuniko and Aiden Lehmans and Landon Wheatley. Yeah. They're just a special bunch. And so I thought I'd just see them through, so I'd come back one more year. So, but I mean, Matt, I'm really going to miss it because I love kids. I love being around kids, but I'm an old man now, and but when I'm out there or when I was coaching, I felt like I was 18. Yeah. Then I'd go look in the mirror and say, "Holy moly, who's that old guy?" You know, I mean, the kids keep you young and that, and so. But then, so I'm doing it for I'm doing it for myself, you know. Yeah. So I'm not doing it for them, and so. That's not the reason you do these things. Sure. You're supposed to be doing it for somebody else. Yeah. So, but I've really enjoyed. Really, it's really going to be hard for me, but I can't see anymore.
Well, let me tell you, you didn't do it just for yourself, because the people I used to love going in there, and ever so often you'd see me come in, and then you'd say I was there and tell people to watch our show, which we always appreciated, and all that kind of stuff. So, you've seen a lot of great basketball, a lot of great softball, a lot of great sports, football at Rockridge. Yep. And this is, I'm opening up Pandora's box because I think you could probably finish the rest of the show by just talking about some of these people. But when it comes to the people that you've gotten to, I don't say cover, but be around and watch at Rockridge High School. I mean, and you look recently the amount of kids that they've had but I mean it's a storied tradition out here. What are some of the Glen Cook favorites? Oh. And they're watching, so if you leave anybody out, you'll be in trouble.
I know.
It's like asking your favorite kid.
That's the thing. Tough to do. I mean, I'll just tell you. Obviously, our greatest basketball player was Ethan Happ. I can say that, and I don't think anyone would disagree with that. A close second is Brian Heath. Brian Heath was a very good player. A close third is Tyson Blazer. Yeah. Now, the greatest all-around athlete that, in my opinion, these are all my opinions, the greatest all-around athlete that we've had is Tyson. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if you know this or if the people know this, but he was recruited D1 in all three sports. Did you know that?
I knew.
Football, basketball,
I didn't know football, baseball. But I knew baseball and basketball.
Oh, yeah. You know, Matt, I'm starting. Dan Burrett should get a kick out of this.
No, I love it.
In one football game, I'll go do the three sports, okay? Yeah. In one football game, Tyson ran for 2 touchdowns, passed for 2 touchdowns, had 18 unassisted tackles as a linebacker, and kicked a 42-yard field goal in one game. Yeah. Okay, in basketball, I'm not going to say the school. It was a small school, and they were not very good this year. In fact, they were terrible. He scored 5 points. They went there on a Friday night. He scored 5 points. He could have scored 50. Yeah. This is what I love about Tyson. He could have scored 50, but he didn't. He made everybody else around him better, and they won easily. The next night, they go to Chicago on a Saturday night and play Chicago Manly. I think Chicago Manly at that time was number 1 in the state. He scored 34 points because they had to have him.
Yeah.
Now that's basketball. Baseball, we're playing Lido.
You coached him.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, he coached me. I was the head coach, but I'll guarantee you, when I first got him, he was 14. I learned far more from him than I taught him.
Yeah, he's still doing it at a high level.
Tyson Blazer is a freak baseball player. He sees things in a game that I used to love to sit with Gene Oliver at games and have him talk about calling pitches and things like that. I loved that. To this day, Tyson is better than that. He sees things in a baseball game that just have always amazed me. Can I keep talking about this?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
There's no weather guy behind me waiting to say last look. There's nobody telling me to wrap. I can go till 5 in the afternoon if you want to.
Well, I hope this is interesting to the other people.
100%.
But Tyson Blazer was the word teammate. His picture should be beside that word in the dictionary because he was the perfect teammate.
Yeah.
Because he cared about the team.
Yeah.
And another kid, Cody Hinson, same way. Cody, Matt, when you cross the foul line or when you go out on the court, when the game starts, let me get through this. The only thing that matters is win the game. That's all that matters. Now that doesn't mean on the scoreboard. That means you're there to do the best you can to win the game. That's all that matters. If you lose the game and you've done your best, you win.
Yeah.
But if you've loafed your way through it and you happen to win the game, you lose. And so Tyson and Cody Hinson, guys like that, Ethan Happ, they were there to win the game.
Yeah.
And if it took a teammate to win it, so be it. There are guys that I have to win this game.
Yeah.
I know I'm running off the head
you're
here.
Great. You're great.
But that's what I believe. And he was the ultimate. He was the ultimate athlete at Rockridge to make everybody around him better.
Yeah.
And because it was about winning the game, and he got it. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Is there moments at Rockridge that you remember and not maybe just at the high school, but I can't stop. I remember my oldest Charlie would rehearse or would duplicate it in the basement on his hoop. Carson Frakes' shot down at state. I mean, what moments when it comes to that community and those athletics that you remember the most?
Well, obviously that's the most famous moment in Rockridge basketball history.
Where were you at when that happened?
In the hospital. I had a. Let me tell the story.
Yes, of
I
course.
had a growth on my kidney.
Okay.
My urologist or whatever, he told me that we'll get that. We need to cut that off because it's growing.
Okay.
So they were going to go through my rib cage, cut through my ribs, and remove this. I said, "Oh man, that's going to lay me up forever." Well, and so he told me, he said, there is another procedure. I said, "What's that?" And he said, this guy up in Mattson, Wisconsin, the University Hospital up there, they go in and freeze this growth, and take a biopsy at the same time. Excuse me. So that's what we did. So the day that Carson Frakes made that shot was the day I had that done.
Okay.
Yeah, the next night I was down at the game.
Of course you were.
Yeah.
We don't talk about the next night because the next night's not a big deal.
No.
After that game, that moment, I don't know if I've ever told you this, but that day for me, it's busy that time of year, and I was at the Big Ten tournament in Indianapolis covering Iowa and Illinois.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Iowa had lost the day before, and Illinois had a noon game. And Corey was back here, we were kind of delegating who was going to go where, and I kind of got word, talking with Corey, he's like, I don't think we're going to get to the Rockridge game. I said, it's a state semifinal. And he's like, but it's on so late, it's on TV, and it was an 8 o'clock start, and that was going to be 8:15, 8:30 after everything got said and done. And so he's like, I don't know, what do you think? And I said, well, I think Illinois is going to lose. No offense to the Illini fans out there, but they were playing Purdue, and they played at 11 o'clock or noon, something like that on Friday, and you knew they weren't going to win. I said, as long as they lose, which I think they're gonna, I'll make the trip from Indianapolis, I can get to Peoria in plenty of time. So we did, and I cut my ins and outs for the Illinois game at halftime because we were down 20. So I found like a Big Ten sign, and I did my ins and outs, and we got all the interviews we needed afterwards, and I cut everything from there, and we went back to the hotel and packed everything up while I was editing in the car and sent that back for the early show, and we got into Peoria just in time. And it's funny because Matt Troha.
Yeah.
I didn't bring any credentials because I didn't think I was going to be going there. So I had emailed him. He's like, I'll get you some. You're fine. So we get there, and not bragging, but we were the only TV station to be down there. And so we're watching, and the rule is, especially down at State, you have to wait. They have to go to the locker room, give them a cool off period before they talk to the media. Well, here I am. I got the live shot fired up. Like, we have our little backpack and stuff, and they make that shot, and I went out on the court, and like I grabbed Toby, and he's just like, I don't even know what just happened. I mean, it was great. And I said, can we go live in like 2 minutes? And he's like, yeah, all right, that's fine. And then Matt walks over, and he's like, Matt, you can't. And I looked at him, I said, hey, I started my day in Indianapolis, and there's nobody else here. He goes, no, you deserve it. Go for it. And we did a live shot at like 10:20 with him. It was one of the best things ever. So, but that day I started my day. I'll talk about it till the day I die. I started my day in Indianapolis, Indiana, covering the Big Ten tournament, and I finished it with Carson Franks making a ridiculous shot to put Rockridge in the state championship game. We came back down the next day, and it didn't matter. The next day didn't matter. I mean, a state championship would have been amazing and all that kind of stuff, but what happened in that state semifinal was awesome. And I remember, and that's another young man. You talk about the Tyson Blazers and the Ethan Haps and so on and so forth. Carson Franks, a kid, a young person you're ever going to meet.
Well, Rockridge, if you go back and look at that shot, he shot it. He didn't throw it. That was a shot.
Yeah.
And we used
with
to
the
have
left hand. Did you know that? He shot it with his offhand.
Really? I don't.
He's used to shooting both, but he shot it with his left hand. He'd practiced it and stuff, but just the way he picked it up and went with it, he shot it with his offhand.
We used to have at when he was in grade school, and they still do it. They have a half court shot for you. Make a half court shot, you win money or whatever it is. He would come up there, and I 50% might be maybe stretching it, but he was deadly on that half court shot as a grade schooler.
He'll take 50%. I'm sure he'll take that.
Yeah, and so when he shot that ball, I mean, it was 1 out of 10 maybe, but I mean, it had a chance of going in because he was deadly on that real long shot. Yeah. Now, but the best pure basketball play that I've ever seen at Rockridge was Ethan Happ. They were playing, I think, Kewanee. It was either Kewanee or Princeton one night at Rockridge. I think might have been Princeton. He rebounded at the south end, started up the floor. They picked him up at center court. He threw a behind-the-back bounce pass to Nick Mattson in the southeast corner of the gym, and continued on to the basket. Nick caught it and threw a lob up to the basket. He caught it both hands and slammed it. That brought even the Princeton people were applauding that. Yeah. And I remember playing Kewanee one night over at Kewanee. They were going to beat us. They had a big 6'8", 6'9" kid that was really good. The game was over in the first quarter. Ethan went out and dominated it. And the Kewanee fans were right. It was a standing room only crowd. They were riding him unmercifully that night. And after the game, what was really neat, I bet he was there for a good half hour signing autographs.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
One of the nicest individuals you'll ever meet.
If 20 years ago, Matt, he'd have been in the NBA, but he didn't have an outside shot. And if you can't shoot the three, the NBA has become boring.
What's always funny with him is I would go up when he was at Wisconsin. We always would find a different feature story to do. Andy McKay and myself would go up and try to do something different with him every year. And I'd watch practice, and he'd sit there with his headphones on and make three after three after three.
Well,
and I
guard
said to him
wouldn't
one
let
time,
him.
Well, I just said to him, I said, why don't you do that next when the season starts and you guys are playing Green Bay Southeast State University or whatever, and I'm like, why don't you knock down? Why don't you? And he would say, I'm gonna. And then he told me one time, he goes, it's hard to do that when you know you're gonna eat inside. Like when you know you can go to the basket and score inside, it's hard to settle. and shoot from out there. But no, 100%. One of those guys that like, and he's doing great things.
Oh,
and
yeah.
still grinding and living a great life playing professional basketball overseas. But yeah, one of the most talented guys. And you mentioned if he was 20 years before that, he would have been a starter in the NBA.
Yeah, I firmly believe that because the game was more inside then, and I don't know basketball, but I firmly believe that. You wonder if Shaq or Chamberlain, that's way back, but if those guys would played today, because I don't know, but but Ethan was
some of the memories when it comes to championships, and I know the softball team has done great. And I know you've been doing some you've done some WLR work with them too. Hopefully they're paying you a good amount of money because you're carrying those broadcasts. You carried Jim for so
Taylor,
long, and then you carrying Ty. And
no,
my goodness.
They finally found out I didn't know what I was talking about. They got Coach Nelson to do it last year, but yeah. Obviously, the state championships of softball are really something, but. I don't want to upset anybody, but softball is built around because I played a top flight men's fast pitch softball. I played it back in the day in the 60s. I played in 3 world tournaments when softball was at its top here. So I have a background in fast pitch softball. So fast pitch softball is built around one position. That's pitching. Yeah. If you don't have a pitcher that's a stud, forget it. I don't care how good your team is. You're only going to go so far because the other team's pitcher will shut you down. Yeah. So I don't want to take anything away because they had a great team. Peyton Brown, do you remember Peyton Brown?
Yeah.
Boy, I mean, that girl. And so could Kendra Lewis. She's up at Wisconsin right now. Yeah. If they don't hit her up there, they need to have their head examined because that little girl can hit. Yeah. And so could Peyton. They're both great hitters. But at the same time,
well, one of my favorite memories is the softball, the state championship that they won softball wise with Liz Watkins as a freshman. Yeah. And now my Carson, my youngest, and her Carson are playing on the same baseball team, which is awesome. But it goes all the way back to that and the success they had back then, and that's another young lady. Liz Watkins is somebody who, basketball.
Probably the best all-around female athlete that Rockridge has ever had is Liz. Okay. Probably. They've had some really good ones. Yeah. I mean, I tell you, Liz was a great hitter, and when Liz was there, the pitcher threw from 40 feet. Now they've moved her back 3 feet, and that makes a big difference.
It made a huge difference.
Yeah.
I mean, covering it wise, when we would go cover softball before they made that move, if you missed the run, you might have missed all your highlights. Like it was a lot of 1-0 games, 2-1 games. They moved that mound back, and it kind of let me breathe a little bit because more offense was going to be scored. I felt like going to a soccer game where if you missed the goal, you could miss the whole thing. If you missed the run, you could miss the whole thing. When it comes to this area, because we've talked a lot about Rockridge, but you're on record that you hate Sherrard, you hate Oregon. No, I'm teasing. You got in trouble one time for saying that. But talk about the rivalries around here because the Quad Cities is full of them. And we talked last week about some of the best rivalries in the Quad Cities with John Marks and with Greg Armstrong, I think, chatted with me, and even Dan Burrich. And Rockridge and Sherrard was always mentioned as one of those rivalries. Sherrard and Orion as well, but and even now that they're back in the same conference, but Mercer County and Rockridge. What is it about these area schools that
traditionally the biggest rival for Rockridge is Sherrard? Yeah. At different times, there for quite a few years it was Monmouth. Excuse me, especially in basketball. The biggest mistake I ever made on the PA, and I won't say anything here, but was against Monmouth. I'll just say it this way. Monmouth punted, and it was homecoming night, and it was a cold night, so we had the window shut on the breast box. And I combined the word punt and the word kick. That's all I'll say.
Dan Burge did that one time.
Really?
On TV.
Oh.
Remember Jeff Kent?
Yeah.
Didn't come out like that. And he just went right through it. Didn't correct himself. Just went right through it and didn't anything. And I don't know if Dan remembers that. I got to talk with Dan tomorrow. Maybe see if he remembers
They had
that.
shirts made up. And a friend of mine that I played golf with, Bill Stewart, he lives a mile northwest of the school out there. He said he was out in the yard. He heard it plain as day. I said John Kohler was running the clock at that time. He lives in Colorado now. In fact, I sent him this today.
So he might be listening, might be watching.
Yeah. So but he was running. He got laughing so hard he almost fell off his chair. I said, "Oh man, do you think anybody heard that?" And Matt, I raised up and I looked out the. They stopped the game. Officials were laughing. It was a worst mistake I made.
It was a slip of the tongue, literally.
Yeah.
I mean, it happens. It happens. There was one
Well,
time.
and then this a year ago, Tom Hassan, who you talk about a great guy that runs our clock down there. It's Katie's husband, and Katie is what a great principal she is. But Tom is her husband, and he runs the clock. And I mean, they are really going to miss him.
Yeah,
because he is so good. But this is his favorite story of mine. We had a kid named Jesus. Can't think of his last name right now. Anyway, I went brain dead and pronounced it Jesus. and Tom
You're just praying.
Yeah,
you're a Christian, man. You're just praying.
Tom, that's Tom's favorite. Another one of Tom's favorite and mine too. This kid went into a game one night. And I don't know why this just struck. The one thing I'm really going to miss is sitting at the table and watching coaches coach.
Oh,
I love that.
Yes.
I love watching coaches, good coach. Well, I just love watching them. Anyway, this kid went in the game. Excuse me. And as he went on the floor, the kid coming off the floor, the kid going in said to him, "Who'd you have?" And he says, "I have no idea."
That's never a good thing, Glenn.
That is to me, that we both just lost it. I have no idea.
And we're going to take a quick break here in a second, but I got my start doing stuff at K-Jack. So after the break, we're going to talk a lot about K-Jack, Dan Burrich, and the Wild Man and what he did. But when I started, I was helping Dan with a show, and one day you called up, and he was just kind of flustered, and Dan just like, I don't know if it was my punishment or what, but Dan left. And left me with Glenn, and it was my first time doing radio, and there was Glen Cook, and I'm glad it was you on the other line because you could carry the conversation. I didn't have to do anything. It was good stuff. So we'll talk more about Quad City sports in general, and just the Wild Man days and the K-Jack days.
Not knowing what I'm talking about has never stopped me.
No, that's unfortunately my problem too sometimes, Glenn. So we're gonna take a quick break. In fact, our first person on the break is Dan Pearson. We were just talking about how good a man Dan Pearson is.
Oh, yeah.
Despite his affiliation with the St. Louis Cardinals, he's a pretty good guy.
Can't forgive him for that.
No, you can't. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. We're back with the one and only Glen Cook right after this. Don't go away.
Hello, Dan Pearson here of FCA. Our team is thrilled to support Off the Air with our good friend Matt Randazzo. We share the view of the power of sport when it comes to relationships, including the influence of the coach. FCA believes the coach is the most influential person in America. Matt celebrates local coaches and athletes. His content is informational, insightful, and inspirational. Our Fellowship of Christian Athlete team loves partnering with Off the Air with Matt Randazzo while we engage, equip, and empower coaches and athletes in our 23 counties. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
View from the West, the podcast covering Illinois high school football.
It's going to be a hard-hitting game. It's going to be great football.
Weekly analysis and reaction from around the western side of the state of Illinois.
This is the game we had circled when the year started.
Follow along on YouTube and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.
It's big-time football out there tonight, and I know we can play big-time football.
View from the West. We got you covered.
Are you looking for the Quad City's best chips and salsa? There's only one dude to turn to.
Right on.
Snoop. Hand-cut chips, fried fresh with that crunch you've come to love. And the most addicting salsa with delicious fresh ingredients each and every time. Pick up your chips and salsa, queso, enchiladas, and much more at the Stern Center in Rock Island. To place your order, simply call the man himself. It's Snoop at 309-314-8197 and find out for yourself what the rest of the Quad Cities already loves. Welcome back to Off the Air on a Tuesday here in the Quad Cities, and we're really happy and excited to have this young man sitting in the studio with me, a place that used to on the old farm. You're hanging out on your own farm, talking a fun career. This is Glen Cook. He will be the PA guy at Rockridge for the last time on Friday night. So if you're in the area and you want to check out some good basketball, Rockridge, a good basketball team. If you want to check out Rockridge and watch Glen cry, what's Friday night going to be like for you?
It's going to be hard, and I'm an emotional person anyway, and I'm worried about doing the lineups. I mean, it's about the kids. It's not about me, and this is their last home game too. And so for me to put it all on me, this is my last game. No, this is their last game. So I'm worried about that I won't blubber over their names. I've just got to put it aside.
Glenn, you've never blubbered a day of your life, have you?
Yes, I have.
So I mentioned before the break, my first time doing a K-Jack, and you remember K-Jack, and anybody who doesn't, I grew up, I would cut grass listening to Dan Burrich, and I think Dan would do a show in the morning and at night. I know Johnny did a show on there for some time. I know TC did one for some time, but for me, K-Jack is Dan, and I of course worked with Dan at WQAD for a long time. He'll be on tomorrow for Wild Man Wednesdays, but and he tossed me to the Wolves, aka Glen Cook. What was it about those times? Because you mentioned when you came out here, like, all right, I got to figure all this out. Can you call in and all those kind of things? There was something to be said about listening to radio, and then when you got something that that Dan said that you didn't agree with, which I'm assuming happened quite often, you could call up and dial the phone and have a fun debate about sports. Those were the good old days in my mind.
Yeah. I'm going to take you out of the equation here, Matt. I don't know anybody that knows more sports trivia than Dan Burrich.
No, you can keep me in the equation. You're 1,000% correct. He's amazing.
I was going up to play golf at Saucony one day, and I think it was Jeff Wendland stopped me in the parking lot and said, "Have you listened to Dan Burrich?" And I didn't know who Dan Burrich was, and I said, "No." He said, "Well, he's on the old KSTT. It's now called K-Jock, and he says he does a call-in show." He said, "You ought to listen." Well, unfortunately for Dan, I started listening because I would call in almost many times, 3 times a day.
Yeah.
And fact is, that's what Dan started calling me, Glen again. And
is it Glen again?
It's Glen again. And he really got upset with me, and I don't blame him because, I mean, if he said the slightest thing that I didn't agree with, I'd call him and try to correct him. Well, then there was a movie out, Blazing Saddles.
Okay.
Well, the town in Blazing Saddles is Rockridge.
Yeah.
Well, he would play that sometimes. If he knew I was on call waiting or whatever, if he knew it was me, he'd play that where they'd say Rockridge, Rockridge, Rockridge. Remember? Well, anyway, so, but yeah.
Did you ever win an argument with him?
Never. No, you don't win. You don't win. No.
Good, I feel better because I could say to him right now, "Hey, Dan, I think the sun's out," and he would say, "No, you're wrong." And I mean, you can look, you sound the damn sun's out, but like I feel like, and I even told him that when he was on one of the first times I did this show. I said, I feel like you made me a better debater of sports or arguer because like I couldn't win to save my life. But if you ever got it to a point where like he kind of agreed with you, like it was like a badge of honor. It's like I didn't win the argument, but I didn't lose it. Sometimes I don't feel like I lost, and that was always a good thing.
Never won an argument. Well, I did. I like he said this is one, for example. He told me one time that Ernie Banks had 50-plus home runs one year. Well, he didn't. The most he ever had, and that's my favorite player. That's why I always wore number 14 was Ernie Banks. So he wasn't going to fool me on Ernie Banks. The most that Ernie had was 47 in a season.
Yeah.
And I knew that.
Yeah.
And he he had, well, I don't know, they had a break or whatever, and he looked it up and found out that I was right. So I remember those type of things. But no, you don't. Dan, I swear, knows more trivia. He remembers. I mean, do you read his posts on
Facebook page? Oh yeah.
I mean, they're amazing.
He'll
I
be
mean,
on the show
he analyzes things.
He'll ramble about this player played for this team in '97 or whatever, and I'm like, I don't know my kid's birthday right now. Like I do, but I'd have to sit there and be like, okay, which one is which one? And he's just, I mean, it's amazing how much he remembers.
Yeah. He, well, it was his show, he called one day to be on that, anyway, it was on Sunday nights.
His own show, the Wild World of Sports.
Yeah.
Yep.
And on TV.
Yeah.
Yep. And so I was on with Johnny Marks one night.
Oh, sorry to hear
and
that.
That's when I said, that's when I said that I hated Sherrard and Orion. And
so you said that on TV.
Oh, yeah. And so what it was though, and before, and we were in break, and he said he's going to bring up the sports that the teams that I don't like. And he says, just be careful what you say. And I looked at Johnny and him both, and I said, they'll understand. So they come back on, and he said, Glenn, are there any teams that you don't like? I said, yeah, I hate the Packers. I hate the Cardinals. I hate Iowa. I hate Sherrard, and I hate Orion. And Dan said that the switchboard just lit up with people calling. And so Sherrard played Beardstown the next night in a baseball super sectional at Augustana. Yeah. So I went over to support Sherrard. Holy moly, you thought I was Hitler. I mean, I walked in there, I had guys in my face, you so-and-so, what, you got nerve showing up here? I'm telling you. So I ended up going over and apologizing to them, to the baseball team, and there was Pete Ullman and Ren Epperly, and some of those kids were on the team at Christensen Boy, and they were in the back laughing, because they knew what I meant.
Yeah.
So I said to him, okay, so next spring, when you guys come to Rockridge, when you get off the bus, I'm going to be there, and I'm going to give each one of you a hug and a kiss on the cheek. Is that what you want? And they said, no. I said, no. You're coming over to kick our butt, and we're going to try to do the same to you. That's what I meant by it. I love Sherrard, and I love I love the people. I've got some great
it's too
friends.
late now. Quit groveling now.
Well, Jim Taylor brings it up, and so did John Hoshite. They would bring it up all the time about how I hated Sherrard.
I love it. Well, I worked at Milan Hy-Vee when I was growing up, and that's when I learned about it, and my wife's a Rockridge grad, but I didn't know Jen at the time, and I'm working at Hy-Vee, I'm an Alleman kid, and I know that I don't like Rock Island and that kind of stuff, and I'm like, man, they don't like each other. There'd be Rockridge kids that work there, there'd be Sherrard kids that work there, and they just didn't like each other, and it was cool. I mean, that's a rivalry. That's what rivalry's supposed to be.
Yeah. So anyway, we go. They take a break that night, and I look over at Johnny, and he's just shaking his head, and I said, John, you went to Alleman. I know you hate Rock Island. He said, yeah, but I'm not going to say it on television.
That's always, you got to. Well, here's the thing, too. And so all the years that I've done this, so last week, Alleman announced the varsity football's coming back. And I was the homer because we talked about it. And I kind of explained that when you did what I did for so long, when Chase and Randall and Rock Island won the state championship, I don't think I can think of another high school team I had more of a emotional tie to and was rooting for more than them. When Moline won with Brock and Owen a few years ago, same thing. When Rockridge was winning back in the day, same thing. And United Township's done. So it's weird how yes, the way I always say it is the 12-year-old Glenn. Or I always say when the banner went upside down, which we'll talk about in a second too, because you're an Illini guy. The 12-year-old me inside as an Iowa fan was laughing my butt off because the banner went upside down. That's maybe in 12. I'm 45 now, and I can be mature enough to know that it's your rival, but there's more to it than just rivalries and sports and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you didn't know that back when you're on television, or you wouldn't have said anything like that. I love it, Glenn. You are an Illini fan. What the hell? How can they not hang a banner correctly or a jersey correctly?
I didn't know that. They hung it up upside down.
Did you didn't know that to this now?
What do you mean with the guy they honored this week?
Terrence
Yeah,
So Kofi's went fine. And then on Saturday
night, doesn't it figure, though, they missed their last 19 shots.
They unrolled it, and it was upside down. And then they went and raised it, even with it upside down. And then after the game, they brought it back down, switched it, and then took some pictures with them, went it the right way. But, I always think about it. We just talked to Jim Mattson about it in the last segment. it's like a live shot. If I went to a live shot on TV and the microphone wasn't working, I wouldn't just let them keep going. Like, I would stop and say, hey, the microphone doesn't work. Let's correct it. If the banner's upside down, I wouldn't let them raise the banner. I did
not say I got so disgusted in that game, I quit watching it. So
yeah,
I didn't know that. But excuse me. But this is a talented team that they have. I don't know. I don't know. Basketball is a confusing game to me.
Here's what I don't think you like. You're an old school Big Ten guy where you like to watch people for 3-4 years get better and develop and become a team. This whole like NIL stuff, transfer stuff, I'm assuming, Glenn, you don't like it.
I don't. I hate it. I mean, they've got, I can't think of the kid's name, that the guard that's so awesome.
Yakatonis?
Yeah, Yakachovich. If he's back next year, it'll be a miracle.
No, he's not coming.
Riley won't be back either. I mean, it's just, I mean, there's no loyalty now. And the thing, and I hate to admit this, but Iowa has a loyalty to their school. Not that they don't have kids transfer, they do, but the coaches they hire, Ferentz in football and McCaffrey in basketball, they know who to recruit and how to recruit for that school.
They still want to develop kids. They want to develop them and coach them and make them better.
And their fan base is off the the waving to the kids. I mean, the things that Iowa does is Illinois can't touch it.
It sounds like you're wavering a little bit.
I hate. The best thing about Iowa is that you can stand on the shore and see Illinois. That's the best thing about Iowa.
I don't know.
No.
Sounds like you want to. Oh, it's funny because.
Although when you go over shopping over there and it's coming back, it's like North and South Korea. I mean, and where Illinois is North Korea. I mean, you go over there, the Iowa side is just booming.
Cheaper gas.
Oh yeah. That's another thing.
You want to? I got an Iowa hat over here. You could probably put on. You look. Hey, did you ever think Liz Watkins and her family, she'd be wearing Iowa colors? She went to Iowa.
Oh, I know. Softball. No, and so did Ty. That was really neat. The softball catcher at Iowa at the same time was from Rockridge, and the baseball catcher from Iowa was at Rockridge.
And they were cousins.
And they were first cousins.
Yeah.
That amazing. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, Liz is a great athlete, big, strong girl, and a good kid, and
she's a sweetheart.
Yeah.
When you look at, so we talked about the K-Jock days, and you mentioned newspapers, and we were talking during the break or before the show about we're going to bring back Ness Guest next year with Ness. Ness was on the show and that kind of stuff. It has changed, and I'm not piling on or anything, but not all in good ways. What are your thoughts of just like the way that sports has evolved and been covered in the Quad Cities? Because you go back to the K-Jock days and the newspaper days and everything else. Like, where are you at with where it's gone and where it could go and all that kind of stuff?
Well, I worked at the Argus for 21 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I knew that.
And but I was a pressman. But Murray Hurt was there at that time, and he would have me go cover things. But that's why I think what you're doing here, Matt, you coming in at a time where you could kind of fill in the chink that the newspaper. I'm sorry, folks. I love Tom Johnson, God bless him, but because of this side of the river is not being covered.
It's numbers. They went from Matt Koss was on earlier this year, and they went from having 15 full-time or 15 people in the, not full-time, but 15 people in the sports department doing things and stuff between the two papers. There's 2 people now. I mean, it's just, and like, that's why I kind of said to you is like your name's on it. Like when you said Tom Johnston, TJ, there's not a person that works harder right now in the business than TJ, but you're swimming upstream.
Yeah, and I love the newspaper. I love to get it. I miss it so much to open a newspaper and read I used to read the box scores. I just love doing that and see the standing. I love that. I'm like you say, I'm an old person, and so that's why this here is foreign to me. What you're doing here, but I think that what you're doing here can fill in the void. That and now you watch sports on TV. God bless Corey and Joey Danya and Jay.
Yeah.
You know, they're hardworking guys, but they're not given any time. The weather takes 10 minutes, whatever. I don't know what the weather takes 3 times as much airtime and they're trying to cover all of these local schools, all the pro sports, they're trying to squeeze it into 4 or 5 minutes. It can't be done.
Yeah. That's the nice part about this is that like I do have more time to talk and do and have longer conversations. And, you know, I do think, and I kind of talked with Matt Koss a little bit about, you know, yes, there's the frustrations of the lack of newspaper and all those kind of things and where things are going. But on the flip side of it, like I do love the fact that like, you know, View from the West podcast is a podcast where people can go listen to everything you want about high school football in the state of Illinois. And shows like this, they're just different formats that people have to get used to, but they give you more freedom to do whatever you want. I mean, I can go, like I joked with you, until 5 o'clock if I want to. I got like a honeydew list a mile long, so I can't do that. But like, that's the beauty part about doing these things. But I do admit that like when I decided to do this and change, and I told my mom about it, she was like, how am I going to be able to watch that? And I'm like, it's not as hard and daunting as it looks, but I'm a creature of habit too. I like my habits in the same way and stuff. And so it is a switch of venues and those kind of things. But yeah, it's not what it was when and I think this fills the void that I think's been around for a long time when it comes to KJOC. And maybe I'm crazy, but when I was in college and high school, that's what I wanted to do. I turned on, I'm like, there's somebody that pays Dan Birch to sit in front of a microphone and talk about sports. And that's all I signed me up. And there was a community for it and there was a love for it. And like, yes, there's always something about watching the game live or, you know, seeing the highlights. But to sit around and talk about it and debate about it and have varying opinions that you don't agree with, but you can have a good spirited debate about and then still have a beer afterwards about is something that just doesn't happen too much anymore. And when it comes to social media, people get angry with each other instead of just having like, you know, we're both Cub fans, so we can agree with that. I'm an Iowa fan, you're an Illinois fan. We could argue about that. Like that's the beauty part about it in sports. And hopefully this fills in a little bit for it because Glenn, it's not that KJOC stuff is something that, yes, it was a dying, you know, sports radios was dying and all that kind of stuff. But there's definitely a market for it where people love this stuff and they want everything now. You know that. They want instant this. They want instant that. They want instant reaction. They don't want to wait until maybe 10:30 at night to find out about how their team did. They want to hear about it and listen to Glen Cook talk about it and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I had a thought there and it went away. But yeah, it's nothing like it used to be. You know, before I forget this, I don't know what we're about done here, are we? But anyway.
Please. I don't know who's still listening, but we can go all day.
Yeah. None of what I have done would have been possible without my wife, Ann.
Good boy.
She has been supported. She kept score for us in baseball. And, you know, I'm a very sexist person. I wouldn't let women in the dugout. Yeah. I won't let anybody in the dugout. Ask Rod Peterson. You know, Rod, baseball pitcher.
Yeah.
Well, he was Cody Hinson's pitching coach, and after a game one night, he come in the dugout to sit and talk. I told him to get out of the dugout. I mean, that's so stupid.
But Glenn,
but I would not let Ann in the dugout.
In youth baseball, like there's moms and people that come over and like I'm an old school person. The John Markses, the Scott Hardings, the people that I've listened to and talked to in the past that said like, no, like mommy and daddy can talk to them afterwards. Like this is our dugout. It's not a guy-girl thing. It's just this is our dugout.
You want a hot dog, you want a Coke, you get it before the game. When the game starts, that's done.
Yeah. No, I completely agree.
It wouldn't happen in football, and it wouldn't happen in basketball, and it's not going to happen in baseball.
No, I completely agree. But Ann is obviously...
Oh, yeah. She kept score, and she would be out there, and I don't care where we played. She was there keeping score. And I've always called her Babe. I know, but that might be disrespectful, but I don't mean it that way, and she knows I don't. But one night we played, and she couldn't be at a game in Aledo, so I had Jason Foy keep the book. You know Jason.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah.
You must have been desperate.
Yeah.
No, I love Jason.
So Jason was sitting outside the dugout keeping the book, and so I was around the corner from him, and I said, "Where are we at in the lineup, Babe?" So I called him Babe. And to this day now, he calls himself Babe. Yeah.
Jason should take a compliment wherever he can get it.
Yeah.
You know?
But I want to thank you and Jay Kidwell too. He was always kind to us. But you and Corey were always so nice to me. But the people at Rockridge, that's what's going to be so hard Friday. Katie Hassan and Daphne Graves is another. She's our assistant principal. Tom Hassan, Jeff Henry. I'm telling you, Matt, if there's a dictionary with the word coach, Jeff Henry's picture should be beside that word. There is the ultimate, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've said this for years too. It isn't, especially at a small school, high school, it isn't necessarily what you know about that particular game. It's getting the kids to buy into it and getting their trust and respect. And Jeff Henry has that.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Jeff Henry. And all of our Sam Graves down there, I love Toby and Andy Say, and now Jordan Harris. I love I'm going to really miss that, the interaction with the other coaches that come in. Larry Anderson over at Orion, and Alex Johnson at Sherrard, a good young man. Isn't he? You pay attention to what Sherrard's doing.
Yeah.
I mean, they're going to blow people away here in a couple of years.
Yeah.
What he's doing is off the charts.
Listen to that, Sherrard people. Look at that. He just
No, I
the
mean,
Tigers.
I'm telling you, he's
what
building
would be
from the
ultimate-
ground up.
I like wrestling. You know what would be the ultimate heel or
Lucas
bad guy
Smith
move?
at our place. Go ahead.
You know what would be the best move, like the ultimate bad guy turn, if you started doing PA for Sherrard next year.
Oh no!
Can you imagine?
No.
Could you imagine like the ultimate bad guy turn?
Oh no!
Okay.
That's not going to happen.
That's just my wrestling type.
I love Sherrard. I love the people and everything, but that is not going to happen. When I quit coaching baseball out there for a year, I had a couple problems with a couple parents, so I just said the heck with it. So I stepped down. I came back a couple years later, but Sherrard, baseball is a hard sport to find coaches for.
Yeah.
It is because of the time of day they play and so on and so forth. Well, Sherrard wanted me to coach over there. Alleman wanted me to coach UT, Rock Island. I mean, that shows you how hard up that they are for assistant coaches. They wanted me to sit in the dugout and just be another pair of eyes. So, yeah. So, but I Alleman, for instance, that's another rival for Rockridge is Alleman. I just couldn't see myself wearing green.
Yeah, no, I get
or,
you.
Or Sherrard's purple
was
and gold.
Was it Lemon? Was it that last year? Or
No,
was it
no,
Johnny?
it was no, Scott Harding.
Okay.
Yeah, Scott Harding was there. Yeah. No, was that right? Yeah. No. I think it was Scott. But then Scott also asked me to coach at UT because he went to UT.
Yeah.
There is a great baseball coach. I'm not kidding you. Scott Harding is a great. Andy Campbell was at Rock Island.
Yeah.
And I loved Andy too. And I know I'm just jumping all around here, but there's so many people. That's the thing, Matt. When I quit, there's so many people that need to be thanked that really,
Are they going to give you a microphone on Friday night?
They better. Oh, you mean
I guess you have one, but do you get?
I do.
Do you get to talk? You get a little speech. What you should
no,
do?
No, I'm not going to do that.
Is so you don't forget anybody. Every time out, like think about two more people.
Yeah, that'd be a great idea. But then I'd leave.
But then make it about yourself, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
Before I let you go, the young people get a bad rap these days. And somebody like you that's around young people, and you just talked about this group at Rockridge, these guys leaving, but I think that was the cool part about I get it. I get the overall frustration with young people, and I'm becoming that old guy that gets frustrated with certain aspects of video games and all that kind of stuff. But it's re-energizing to yourself to be around because they're still great kids.
Oh no,
they're still great
kids. Haven't changed.
Yes,
kids. These young people today are awesome, but look at the distractions that they have. That are. This is really a throwback, and it's become such a problem, and with the idea that it can't be fixed is drugs. Look what drugs have done to this country, and look what it's done to the world, and to kids, and just say no. Okay, that's an easy thing to say, but when your peers are putting pressure, we could talk forever about that.
I get you. But they do get and video
But I
games
love
and
kids.
all that kind of stuff just drive you crazy. But like when you get to, and I get to coach some kids now, and like especially the ones that I've coached. What's that?
Aren't they great? The kids.
Yeah, and like some of the kids that like my son's now a freshman, so they're now that high school age, and you're just like, you know, they're still good kids. Kids, like you mentioned, kids are kids, and they're good kids, and all those kind of things. So I think that's the beauty part of what you've gotten to do is that you've gotten to watch a lot of kids come through Rockridge High School and do really good things, and they remember you afterwards. That's the important part. If they come back to visit, if they swing by Rockridge and it's Christmas time and they see Glen Cook, they're always going to come say hi. And that's I think something that you're going to remember more and more every day.
Yeah, I'll miss those kids, and I'll never be able to thank the good Lord, you know, enough. The best thing that ever happened to me in my life outside of my family is being asked to coach baseball at Rockridge. Dick Stoles asked me to do that. I was 60 years old when I started coaching, and that's the time when people are retiring. We won the boys won 234 games after I was 60 years old. In fact, and I'm proud of that.
Yes.
But it was so much work because at Rockridge, and I think it is at most small schools, you take care of the field too.
Yeah.
And if you're into it at all, I would go out, and I was retired then, and I would go out and spend 3 hours a day on that ball field.
Yeah.
And then the kids come down. Well, I was old man. I was tired. And they have to throw batting practice, things like that. So.
Well, that's the thing is, that's the tough part about people complain about referees, people complain about coaches, people complain about a lot of stuff. Remember, like it's usually a small amount of people that are doing a lot of work for everybody else. And remember that in the grand scheme of things. Go ahead, Glenn.
No, I'm just so glad you mentioned the referees. I just love those guys. I mean, that's another thing I'm really going to miss. They always come over to the table and say hi before the game, and I'm really going to miss like the Joe Thompsons, the Ted Timbrook. I mean, there's so many. I don't want to get into
football-wise. There's the Jason Foys, who's one of the worst. One of the worst officials you ever meet.
Yeah, well, his eyesight was not good.
No, it never's been good. But and I told people when I got done doing what I was doing. I even told my wife, I'm like, we go to every youth event that there is, and like now high school-wise. And I'll be sitting there and the referees will come over and I'll have somebody say to me every game, like, do you know every referee? And I'm like, yeah, because I spent Tuesday and Thursday nights and Friday nights on a baseline someplace. And you know what? If you're going to be standing next to somebody and chat with somebody, you sure as heck better get to know them. And after 25 years, I got to know a lot of them, and they're really good people. And like, I get it. I get bad calls. You're a head coach in baseball, and you've seen your share of them. None of them are doing it on purpose.
No.
They're human beings that are making mistakes, and like they take a lot of guff. And everyone loves youth sports. Everybody loves them. But if there were no referees, umpires,
there'd
officials,
be no games.
There'd be no games, and that's what I always remind people. This has been a ton of fun. This is not the last time you're coming on this show.
Okay.
You're going to be coming out here. We'll talk baseball someday. We're going to get you in with Dan one of these days too. I got to show you how to do it on your video, so you don't have to make the drive over out here.
That'd be awesome, man.
But
I love you to death, man.
And remember, your last PA thing is on Friday. But you're going to be out there watching games. You're still a part of the community.
Oh, yeah.
And trust me, as much as you love that community, I know for a fact, because they tell me about it, that community loves the heck out of you. So we've appreciated everything you've done Rockridge-wise. I'm not even a member of the community. My wife and family have been out there, but they trust me. And my family members, Glen Cook is legend when it comes to that area. But I appreciate you always being good to me, most importantly. And this is the beauty part now. You can come and hang out with me now.
Oh, yeah. I've Matt, I mean, this... I don't want to get choked up here, but I love Rockridge, and I love just what you said there, and I really appreciate you saying that. I really appreciate you, Matt, because you're a good guy, and and I'm really, that's another reason I got to meet so many great people because of that, and you're one of them.
I appreciate that. That's the best part about what we do is that you get to meet the people around it. It's not the stuff you do, it's the people we get to meet and do. So, well, I appreciate it, Glenn, and like I said, all eyes will be on you on Friday night. I know the players as well, but it'll be a special night at Rockridge. If you get choked up, think of like Birch yelling at you. And
I'm going to do my best. I'm going to do my best not to.
You know what? If you do, who cares?
I hope that I can get out the starting lineups. I think I'm going to say this for the last time. Maybe I better not say that.
Yeah, you should.
For the last time, here's the Rockridge lineup. So
Yeah.
something like that.
I love it. I love it. Well, I might sneak out. I'm trying to figure out where my son doesn't play on Friday because Alleman and Rockridge play Thursday, but then Alleman has the day off Friday. So maybe I'll sneak out to Rockridge and check you out one more time before. And then again, like we said, you're not going anywhere. You'll be out there and bugging people at Rockridge for years and years.
Well, I'm going to do baseball because baseball. My whole thing, Matt, is that is my eyesight.
Well, then you should become an umpire.
I have macular degeneration and the wet kind, and it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
And so it isn't so much. I can still see the players' numbers and so on and so forth, but it's the driving home after dark that's a problem.
Yep.
And so, I'm 50. I've been there 51 years. I'm 84 years old. It's time. Believe me, it's time for a young person to do this. And I think it will be Tyler Cargill. If it is, no matter who it is, he'll do a great job. But Tyler will do a great job. He's a great young man.
All right. Well, he is Glen Cook. I appreciate you coming in and doing this. This has been
Thank
a
you.
fun thing for me to get to do. Thank you guys for watching. I want to thank all of our guests, Glenn, for coming out here. I want to thank Rob Brooks, the voice of the Iowa women, for taking some time with us this morning. And then Jim Mattson talking Illini athletics as well. Coming up tomorrow, we'll be joined by Andrew Lehman from the John Deere Classic is going to join us, maybe with an announcement, possibly, or two tomorrow. So him, and then also tomorrow is Wednesday. So we'll go from Glen Cook to the Wild Man Dan Birch and much, much more. So we're getting to hump day here in the week. We want to thank you guys for watching. If you're watching on YouTube and Twitter, we appreciate it. Subscribe. That helps me out a ton. And if you are watching this and if you want to check it out on a podcast platform, I should say, it's up on all the podcasting platforms as well. That'll do it for today's show. Thank you guys so much, and we will see you guys back here tomorrow on Off the Air.